Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking, and as always before the video starts, I want to use this opportunity to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal or Super Thanks. Thank you friends, and have a blessed day. Now, today's video I will start on the Zaporozhian fronts and, to be more specific, situation around Rabotine Verbovo villages. Unfortunately, all throughout last week I was sick and was unable to do videos. Now I am better, although you can still hear remains of my sickness in my voice. Nevertheless, let's continue. In the last video that I made, I reported that Russians successfully launched several counterattacks in the direction of Verbovo and were able to recover some of the positions in between those two villages. All throughout last few days, Ukrainians were continuously counterattacking in attempt to negate that Russian success, and as recent reports suggest, were somewhat successful in that endeavor. As a result of successful offensive operations, they were able to advance along this road and re-enter the village of Novoprokopivka yet again. After that, they attempted to entrench themselves in this area, however, quickly found themselves under Russian artillery fire. Due to its intensity, after some time they were forced to retreat. When that was done, Russians quickly counterattacked, regained control over this area, and after short clearing operation, fully negated this Ukrainian attack. At this point in time, these positions and its surrounding areas are in Russian hands. Not only Ukrainians were assaulting from Rabotino village along this road, but they were also attacking to the flank and rear of the Russian forces located in and around Novoprokopivka. In order to significantly decrease effectiveness of those attacks, Russian artillery worked day and night in this general sector. For example, here on this video, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. As soon as Russian recon groups report of Ukrainian movement in this area, Russians immediately start heavy bombardments of open fields and force lines in which Ukrainian forces are neither hiding or advancing to the front line. This obviously inflicts heavy damage on the Ukrainian advancing forces, and at times they are forced to retreat before entering a battle. There were also Ukrainian attacks in the general direction of village Verbovo. However, these attacks were highly unsuccessful, as Ukrainians are not only able to re-enter the village, but also extend their zone of control along the first line of Russian defense, or so-called Surovikin line. Ukrainians also continued their offensive operations from the Malotokmachka settlement in the direction of Novopokrovka and along this road in between Verbovo and Novopokrovka. At this point in time, all of these attacks were successfully repelled by the Russians and also attacked in the direction of Russian-controlled village of Kompani. And as a result of these offensive operations, were able to capture a small portion of the territory located right in front of Nestryanka and Kompani. Here on this picture, you can see exactly how much territory Ukrainians were able to capture. Now, from this sector, let's visit Kherson Oblast and discuss the situation around Antonovsky Bridge. As a result of offensive operations here in this area, Ukrainians were able to advance along the E97 highway in the direction of Russian-controlled bridge over Konka River, and as a result of that, were able to capture this much territory from the Russian side. As you can see, to this day, Russians are still unable to deal with this problem. Not only that, there are more reports that suggest that Ukrainians had decided to double down on their attempt to capture this whole island, and more landings of Ukrainian DRGs are reported here in this area. Perhaps Ukrainians will continue to increase their presence on this island until they are in full control of it, and then perhaps could launch attacks in the direction of a big city of Oleshki. Then from here, let's move to the settlement of Marinka and discuss the situation here. This front line has and is still very active, and there is currently battles ongoing in this area. But first, let's talk about Marinka. So the Russian forces continued their offensive operations not only within the village itself, but also to the north and to the south of it. Here, Russians are yet again attempting at capturing the settlement of Pobeda, as well as applying pressure in attempt to squeeze out Ukrainian forces in what's left of Marinka and commit into a flank attack to its north. Although Russian attacks in the direction of Pobeda and within Marinka were generally unsuccessful, Russian attacks to the north of the village had seen some relative success. So as a result of fighting here in this area, Russians were able to advance in the warehouse area, here, and captured this much territory from the Ukrainian side. Here you can see that on the picture on your screens. While this is happening, the village of Novomikhailivka has yet again become a center of interesting news because both Russians and Ukrainians are conducting offensive and counter-offensive operations, which makes this particular portion of the front most interesting. With massive artillery support, Russians are attacking in the direction of Novomikhailivka from the villages of Stepne and Slavne, while Ukrainians are fighting in the so-called Zverinets stronghold and are continuously attacking in the direction of Marinka and near the settlement of Pobeda. Now, before we move on, I want to quickly show you a video of Russian ATGM crew knocking out Ukrainian tank with their missile. Now, unfortunately, I was unable to geolocate where exactly this took place. However, I found this video very interesting and worthy of showing to you. Now, with this sector out of the way, let's move to the Avdiivka settlement and also discuss the situation here. It shouldn't come as a surprise that Ukrainians continued their offensive operations from Severna in the direction of Vodyane, and from their controlled positions in front of Avdiivka in the direction of Apitne. In both those cases, Ukrainian forces were counterattacked by the Russians, and they were unable to advance here ever slightly. On the other hand, Russians were able to advance here in this area and capture a small portion of the road and the bridge. As you can see, this advance came in the direction of Avdiivka itself. Here on this picture, you can see exactly how much territory Russians were able to recover in this area. Now, whether this is a sign of something big coming up is unclear. As you can see, Russian forces can follow the road or move along the recently captured portion of the bridge and intersections, and at some point even establish a new defensive line along this highway, after which attacks in the direction of the very outskirts of Avdiivka can happen, and with this, Russians can surely initiate the battle for the city itself. Now, I would like you to pause the video and comment in the comment section. What do you think is possible? Whether this is a one-time thing or something big is coming in the direction of Avdiivka? It would be interesting for me to read your comments. Now, from Avdiivka, let's quickly jump to the settlement of Bakhmut, or to be more specific, its flanks, and discuss the situation here. In the last few days, Ukrainians unsuccessfully continued their assaults in the direction of Russian-controlled Kurdyumivka and Zelenopilya, as well as attacks from both flanks of recently captured village of Andriivka in attempt to push Russians away from this rail line, which Russians are currently using as a defensive line. Same could be said about Klishchiivka, where Ukrainians continuously assaulted from it in attempt to extend their buffer zone around it, as well as attacked to the north of Klishchiivka in this forest, where Russians still to this day have several positions in it. However, despite all of these attacks, Ukrainians were unable to advance here anywhere. Ukrainians were unable to advance anywhere, and all of their attacks on the southern flank of Bakhmut was successfully repelled by the Russians. On your screen, you can see a graveyard of Ukrainian vehicles that are destroyed in the general Klishchiivka sector. This should serve as evidence not only to the high intensity of battles here in this area, but to the fact that despite Ukrainian side mostly calling Russians cowards who run without a fight, Ukrainian side took a heavy beating in this battle, taking Klishchiivka, Andriivka, and the tactical heights in a process. To me, this is a Pyrrhic victory, and the fact that Ukrainians are unable to advance past those two settlements is a great example of that. Ukrainians took too much casualties and now are forced to regroup if they are planning to advance here yet again. From here, let's quickly discuss the situation on the northern flank of Bakhmut. Yet again, Ukrainians attacked in the direction of Yagodne and Berkhivka, as well as in attempt to close off this Russian-controlled salient and capture Dubovo-Vasilivka, and counterattacked Russians in Orikhovo-Vasilivka. They have also attacked along the E40 highway and in the direction of Zalishniansky. All of these attacks were unsuccessful. From here, let's move to the Seversk front. So here is the city of Seversk, and there are some territorial changes near the settlement of Berestove. As a result of a successful Russian attacks that took place northwest of Belogorovka, Russians were able to advance along the rail line and adjacent fields, and as a result of that, were able to capture this much territory from the Ukrainian side. Now, there is a report that suggests that there was a Ukrainian stronghold located near that rail line, so this is a pretty serious victory for the Russians in this area, and perhaps soon after we might see Russian attacks not only directly in the direction of Ukrainian-controlled village of Vesely, but also to its flank and rear. Anyway, this is all that I have for you today. I hope this video was informative enough. If it was, please consider supporting it with a like, comment, and if you haven't subscription. Also, don't forget to share. Not only do those actions help me emotionally, but it also helps this video and channel to grow. So I thank you in advance. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.